you're wary of the interview. You don't like being interviewed. You can see it in the way that you sit and the way you are. That you don't like doing it. So therefore, well, I mean, it's a perfectly easy question, a decent question to ask you about being a journalist. I mean, in other words, if you were me, what would you do now?
Well, just wrap it up.
Remember Meg Ryan? Of course you do. When Harry Met Sally, Sleepless in Seattle, You've Got Mail. She was the face of romantic comedies in the 90s. The woman who made falling in love look easy and adorable on screen. But then something strange happened. She vanished. Not slowly, almost overnight. One day she was everywhere. The next day, she was gone. For 20 years. The tabloids had their story all figured out. They said she had an affair with Russell Crowe and destroyed her perfect marriage. They said she made bad career choices. They said she got plastic surgery and ruined her face. Case closed, right? Wrong. Because the real story is completely different. Her husband had been cheating on her for years, but nobody wanted to talk about that. A famous TV host ambushed her in an interview so badly that he apologized before he died. And during the darkest moment of her life, when Hollywood had completely turned its back on her, she adopted a baby girl from China who changed everything. This is the real story of what happened to Meg Ryan. And it's not what you think. In 2003, Meg Ryan walked into the BBC studios in London to promote her new film. She had no idea she was walking into a trap, which, honestly, she should have suspected, because British interviewers don't mess around. She was there to promote In the Cut, a dramatic departure from her rom-com roots. What happened next became one of the most infamous interviews in television history, and not in a fun way. The host, Michael Parkinson, immediately went on the attack. He grilled Ryan about appearing nude in the film. His tone was disapproving, almost paternal, like a disappointed father lecturing his daughter about her life choices. He told her she was wary of journalists, that she was uncomfortable, that he could see it in the way she sat. Real, subtle stuff. The criticism was relentless. Ryan's answers became shorter. 1 word, 2 words. The tension built like a pressure cooker about to explode. Finally, when Parkinson asked what she would do if she were conducting the interview, Ryan delivered 2 words that sealed her fate. Wrap it up. Chef's kiss, perfect response, absolutely brutal. And the media crucified her for it. She was called difficult, ungracious, rude. Her behavior was voted the 3rd most shocking TV chat show moment ever by British viewers, which is saying something because the British love their scandals. What most people didn't know at the time was that Ryan had been waiting for commercial breaks that never came on the BBC. She wanted to leave, but there was no escape. Trapped in British television hell. She later revealed she didn't even know who Parkinson was before walking onto that set, which honestly makes the whole thing even better. Years later, something interesting happened. People rewatched the interview. The narrative shifted. Many observers noted that Parkinson was actually the one being hostile and condescending, grilling her about nude scenes like a disapproving father judging his daughter. Turns out, maybe Meg Ryan wasn't the problem after all. Who would have thought? Michael Parkinson eventually apologized in 2021, admitting he wished he hadn't lost his temper, and that he came across as pompous. Too little too late, Parky. But by then, the damage had been done, for nearly 2 decades. The Parkinson interview wasn't just a bad moment. It was the beginning of Meg Ryan's exile from Hollywood. But the Parkinson interview was only the final nail in a coffin that had been built a few years earlier. The real story began in 2000, on the set of Proof of Life, a thriller starring Meg Ryan and Russell Crowe. Because nothing says professional working environment like casting 2 attractive people in a romantic thriller. Ryan was married to Dennis Quaid at the time. They had been Hollywood's golden couple for nearly a decade, married since Valentine's Day 1991, with a son named Jack born in 1992. They seemed perfect. All so romantic. Until it wasn't. Behind closed doors, the marriage was crumbling. But nobody knew that yet. Because we hadn't invented Instagram to document every relationship problem in real time. During the filming of Proof of Life, photos emerged of Ryan and Crowe getting cozy on set. The tabloids exploded like they'd just discovered fire. Ryan and Quaid announced their separation while the film was still in production, knowing which is never a good sign for a movie's box office prospects. The film itself became a disaster. Director Taylor Hackford openly blamed Ryan and Crowe for the movie's failure, saying their affair created a destructive effect that overpowered the release. The film grossed only $63 million against a $65 million budget. A total flop. But sure, blame the actors for your mediocre thriller, Taylor. Here's where the story got darker. Ryan took all the blame. She was painted as the villain who destroyed her marriage, betrayed Dennis Quaid, and ruined a major motion picture. The public turned on her viciously. Her rom-com image, carefully built over a decade, shattered overnight like a dropped iPhone. Crowe's career? Barely affected. He went on to star in A Beautiful Mind and Master and Commander. His trajectory never faltered. Because Hollywood loves a double standard. But here's the secret nobody talked about at the time. In 2008, 8 years after the divorce, Meg Ryan finally spoke the truth. Dennis Quaid had been unfaithful to her for a long time. Dennis was not faithful to me for a long time, and that was very painful, she told InStyle magazine. I found out more about that once I was divorced. Plot twist, the marriage was already broken. Crowe wasn't the cause, he was just there at the end, like the last person at a party nobody wanted to attend. Quaid wasn't pleased about her revelations. He fired back, saying it was unbelievable that Meg continued to publicly rehash the relationship 8 years later. But here's the thing. Ryan had stayed silent for nearly a decade, while the world crucified her. When she finally told the truth, she was criticized again for speaking up. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. She couldn't win. Even Dennis Quaid himself eventually admitted the real problem. In a 2024 interview, he confessed he couldn't handle his wife being more famous than him. When they met, his career was bigger. Then Meg ascended while he struggled. I tried to be a big person and tell myself that didn't bother me. But people are human, Quaid admitted. There it is, folks. The secret wasn't about an affair. It was about ego, jealousy, and a man who couldn't handle his wife's success. Tale as old as time. After the Crowe scandal and the Parkinson interview, Hollywood didn't just turn its back on Meg Ryan. It actively punished her. The industry wanted to make an example of her, because apparently that's what we do to women who have the audacity to be human. Ryan tried to fight back by taking on different roles. In 2003, she starred in Jane Campion's erotic thriller In the Cut, playing a teacher who became involved with a murder investigation while exploring her sexuality. The film featured graphic nudity and represented everything opposite of her rom-com image. Ryan wanted to prove she was more than just a quirky girlfriend archetype. Bold move, Meg. Critics destroyed her, and I mean destroyed. The film currently holds a 34% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which is brutal. Entertainment Weekly's headline screamed, "Meg Ryan bears all, makes leading man nervous." Because that's professional journalism, right? Reviews fixated on her nudity rather than her performance. Ryan later said the reaction was vicious. Since then, I've had publicists say to me, "You should have prepared your audience for your doing something different," she told the New York Times magazine. In the Cut was a sexual thing, and sex throws people. Apparently, audiences couldn't handle seeing Sally get freaky. Against the Ropes came out in 2004, another critical and commercial failure. Then, Ryan essentially disappeared for 3 years. Can't blame her, honestly. When she returned in 2007 with In the Land of Women, critics praised her performance, but the film barely made $17 million. The Women in 2008 was another disaster. My Mom's New Boyfriend and The Deal both went straight to DVD, which, in Hollywood terms, is like being sent to movie jail. The message was clear. Hollywood had blacklisted her. Studios wouldn't greenlight her projects. Critics savaged anything she touched like she'd personally offended them. The rom-com roles that once made her $15 million per film dried up completely. Younger actresses like Reese Witherspoon, Jennifer Aniston, and Sandra Bullock eagerly stepped in to fill the void Ryan had created. Thanks for warming up the rom-com throne, Meg. We'll take it from here. But there was another layer to the punishment. Because why stop at just destroying someone's career when you can attack their appearance too? Ryan's face became a target. Tabloids and gossip sites began running stories about her changing appearance, speculating about plastic surgery, Botox, and lip fillers. Celebrity plastic surgeons who had never treated her publicly diagnosed what procedures they thought she'd had done. Dr. Sam Riz called her face a mess and claimed she'd had a bad facelift in the wrong direction. Stay classy, Dr. Riz. The cruelty was systematic. Hollywood had taken one of its biggest stars and decided to destroy her on every level. Her career, her reputation, her appearance. Everything that made Meg Ryan into a star was weaponized against her. Because that's what happens when you stop being America's sweetheart and start being, a regular human being with flaws. While Hollywood was busy tearing Meg Ryan apart, something profound was happening in her personal life. In 2006, 5 years after a divorce from Dennis Quaid, Ryan adopted a baby girl from China. She named her Daisy True Ryan. And yes, that's adorable. The adoption was done quietly, with minimal fanfare, because Ryan had learned her lesson about letting the media into her personal life. Ryan had always wanted to adopt. She'd been on the brink of it several times before. But something about Daisy felt different. The Chinese adoption process included a lottery system. Daisy was chosen for Ryan randomly. At least, that's what the paperwork said. Ryan believed otherwise, because sometimes fate works in mysterious ways. She is the daughter I should have, Ryan said in 2004. I never felt like I was on a rescue mission or anything like that. I just really wanted a baby. I was on a mission to connect with somebody. And Daisy and I got to meet each other this way, at this time. Daisy was born in 2004 in China. Ryan adopted her when she was around 2 years old. Ryan became a single mother at 44, raising Daisy without a partner, which is no easy feat when you're also dealing with career implosion and tabloid harassment. Her son Jack, from her marriage to Quaid, was 14 at the time. The family fit together perfectly. I just can't imagine what it was like before she came, Ryan told Redbook. Life is good. It's so good with her in it. She and Jack get along great. All of us fit together beautifully. Sometimes the best families are the ones we choose, but here's the secret Ryan rarely discussed publicly. The adoption came during the darkest period of her life. Her career was in freefall. Her reputation was destroyed. She was being mocked and criticized daily in tabloids and gossip columns. Because apparently we had nothing better to do in 2006. Becoming a mother to Daisy wasn't just about expanding her family. It was about finding purpose when Hollywood had taken everything else away. When you've lost your career, your reputation, and your place in the industry, a baby who needs you can save your life. Ryan was fiercely protective of Daisy's privacy. Unlike many celebrity parents who plastered their children across social media like digital scrapbooks, Ryan shared only occasional glimpses. A few photos here and there, rare public appearances at fashion shows in Paris. The message was clear. Daisy was off limits to the machine that had chewed up and spit out her mother. Good call, Meg. In interviews, Ryan described Daisy as ridiculously happy, smart, generous, and funny. She's now in her 20s, studying English literature at Smith College, which sounds appropriately impressive. Ryan admitted she visited probably more than I should, driving hours just to share coffee with her daughter on campus. The bond between them was profound. Daisy gave Ryan something Hollywood never could: unconditional love without judgment. No box office numbers, no Rotten Tomatoes scores. Just love. The adoption also taught Ryan something crucial about expectations. It taught me a lot about any expectations you have in life, she reflected in a 2024 interview. Just toss them away. Throw them out. That philosophy, born from adopting Daisy, helped Ryan survive the wilderness years that followed. Sometimes, the best lessons come from the hardest moments. The standard narrative about Meg Ryan's disappearance went like this. She couldn't handle fame, made bad career choices, and voluntarily stepped back from Hollywood to raise her children. That's what most articles said. That's what the industry wanted people to believe. Clean, simple, woman can't hack it in the big leagues. The truth was messier and darker. Ryan didn't just leave Hollywood. She was pushed out. But she also made a conscious choice to walk away from a system that was destroying her, which honestly seems like the smart move. I took a giant break because I felt like there's just so many other parts of my experience as a human being I wanted to develop, Ryan told People magazine in 2023. It's nice to think of it as a job and not a lifestyle, and that is a great way of navigating it for me. On the surface, that sounded like a voluntary exit. But reading between the lines, Ryan was saying she refused to let Hollywood define her entire existence. Imagine that. Having an identity outside of your job. In a revealing 2019 interview with the New York Times Magazine, Ryan was even more direct about what happened. When asked if she would have stayed in Hollywood had In the Cut or Against the Ropes been better received, she said, "I think the feeling with Hollywood was mutual. I felt done when they felt done, probably." Ouch. That statement was loaded with meaning. Hollywood didn't just reject her. It made her feel unwanted. Used up, disposable. The same industry that had paid her $15 million per film and made her one of the biggest stars of the 90s decided overnight that she had no value. Thanks for the memories, Meg. Now get out. Ryan also acknowledged she was never comfortable with fame in the first place. "I wasn't very good at it," she admitted. She said if she had started her career in the social media era, she wouldn't have survived. "If I started my career today, I wouldn't have a chance," she told InStyle. Social media has changed things. It's so vast and big. I couldn't handle the constant attention and judging. Can you imagine Meg Ryan dealing with TikTok trolls? Yeah, neither can I. But perhaps the most revealing comment came when Ryan discussed her time as a Scarlet Woman following the Crow affair. "My time as a Scarlet Woman was really interesting. As painful as it was also incredibly liberating. I didn't have to care about what people thought. That liberation came at a massive cost. But it also freed Ryan from the prison of expectation. When you've already been destroyed by public opinion, you stop caring what people think. It's oddly freeing." For years, Ryan disappeared almost completely. She appeared in a handful of small projects. An episode of The Simpsons, a recurring role on Lisa Kudrow's web series. She directed her son Jack in a coming-of-age film called Ithaca in 2015. But mostly, she lived quietly, raising Daisy, staying out of the spotlight that had burned her so badly. She chose peace over fame, family over fortune. And honestly, good for her. The exile wasn't entirely voluntary, but it also wasn't entirely forced. It was something more complex. Ryan chose to step away from a system that had already rejected her, but she did so on her own terms. She refused to grovel for forgiveness. She refused to apologize for being human. She simply left. And sometimes, walking away is the bravest thing you can do. November 2023. 8 years after her last acting role, Meg Ryan returned to the big screen. Not in a major studio blockbuster. Not in a franchise film designed to revive her career and milk her nostalgia factor dry. But in a small, intimate romantic comedy called What Happens Later, which she co-wrote, directed, and starred in alongside David Duchovny. Because apparently when you're Meg Ryan, you can just call up Fox Mulder and make a movie together. The film told the story of two ex-lovers who reunited decades after their breakup when they were stranded overnight in an airport during a snowstorm. It was about heartbreak, regret, missed opportunities, and second chances. All the good stuff. It was also deeply personal. Ryan dedicated the film to Nora Ephron, the writer-director who gave her some of her most iconic roles in When Harry Met Sally, Sleepless in Seattle, and You've Got Mail. A beautiful tribute to the woman who helped make Meg Ryan a household name. The film made only $1.5 million in its opening weekend. For context, that's less than most Marvel movies make in their first hour. Critics were divided. Some called it enchanting and mature. Others found it boring and cloying. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 51% rating, which is basically the cinematic equivalent of a shrug. By Hollywood standards, it was not a success. By any objective measurement involving money, it was a flop. But here's the secret. Success was never the point. What happens later represented something far more significant than box office numbers. It represented Meg Ryan taking back control of her own narrative. She wasn't begging Hollywood for a second chance. She wasn't trying to recapture her glory days or prove she could still open a movie. She was creating art on her own terms, telling the stories she wanted to tell, with the people she wanted to work with. Revolutionary concept, really. Ryan didn't even plan to star in the film initially. Financing fell through with other actors attached, because apparently nobody wants to fund intimate rom-coms for grown-ups anymore. So she stepped into the role herself, playing a free-spirited, disorganized woman opposite Duchovny's anxious, conservative character. The contrast between directing and acting was intentional, and probably exhausting. It was a relief to play her, Ryan said. David plays a much more conservative guy. Translation: it was nice to pretend to be someone else for a while instead of micromanaging every detail of production. The film's modest reception didn't seem to bother Ryan, which is the most punk rock thing about this whole story. She appeared genuinely happy during promotional interviews. She talked about showing Daisy romantic comedies and doing Frank Capra marathons over Christmas, like a normal person who enjoys movies without obsessing over box office returns. She discussed the value of heartbreak and how understanding its gift came with age. She seemed at peace. Imagine that. A celebrity at peace. In December 2024, Ryan gave a rare interview to the Sunday Times where she finally addressed the plastic surgery speculation that had dogged her for years, like a persistent stalker. When asked about it directly, she gave a succinct response that shut down further speculation without confirming or denying anything. As an old person now, I love my age, she said. I love where I'm at. Aging's not that terrifying. We're all doing it. I wish someone had told me earlier. Just relax. It is what it is. Don't pay attention to the obstacles. Mic drop. That's how you handle invasive questions about your appearance. That statement represented the culmination of a 20-year journey. The Meg Ryan who returned in 2023 was fundamentally different from the Meg Ryan who disappeared in 2003. She was no longer interested in proving anything to Hollywood. She was no longer chasing approval from critics, or audiences, or tabloids. She was simply living her life, making art when she wanted to, and refusing to let other people's opinions define her worth. Which, let's be honest, is the dream. The comeback wasn't about reclaiming past glory. It was about showing that survival was its own form of victory. Sometimes winning means just being okay. Sometimes success means choosing happiness over fame. And sometimes, the biggest middle finger you can give to an industry that tried to destroy you is simply living well. Anyway, that's it for the video, folks.